Arek Rainczuk, I'm so excited to have you back on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here again.
Yes, and we're in a different recording studio to last time.
Right.
It's a lot more spacious.
It is.
And we're actually recording the video of this as well.
That's right.
Yes. And I need to mention that I'm not just going to be asking you questions, but you're going to be asking me questions as well, all around the topic of personal branding and especially related to images and
That's right.
picking the right photos to use for your personal brand.
Correct.
But to get us started, Arek, you are a very talented portrait photographer. That's your thing. Mm-hmm. Tell me, what is it about photographing people's portraits that really gets you excited?
So it depends what kind of portraits. So I do a lot of very meaningful portraits that are intimate, families, couples, pets even. But recently I've been doing more and more commercial portraits. And these are actually more creative than family portraits. Family portraits is all about creating beautiful space for them to open up to each other and document their relationship. With commercial portraits or portraits that are used for business purposes or branding purposes, it's all about creating images with a purpose, and the purpose we have to discuss first, and that's why I want to talk to you, because we recently had a fun experience where I photographed you, and I wanted to see how you found it, how you prepared for it, because these are probably a few things that my clients would find very interesting.
Just to give this some context, I reached a point recently where I realized I really need some better branding photos, because I haven't had professional photos taken of me since 2 years ago. So they're very out of date. And Arek was the first person I thought of. And when I asked him, can you do some business portraits for me? He said, I thought you were never going to ask.
Yes. I've been waiting very patiently.
Yeah. And it was a really, really good day. I really enjoyed it. And the photos look amazing, if I may say so myself.
I'm glad you like them.
If you go to my website, thecmethod.com, by the time you hear this, I would have popped them on there. And also the PSA website, that's Podcast Services Australia, the new business I've set up with my partner Aaron. We had a bunch of photos done for that as well by Arek. So check out podcastservices.com.au to see those as well. Now, firstly, let's just take a step back and talk about personal branding in general. Mm-hmm. Why should people start thinking about building up their personal brand through images? Like, why are images so important?
Because in these days, everything revolves around the internet. Unless you do business in person, where your personal image is important in real life, but the clients will always vet you online. They will look you up on your Facebook, on your website, and LinkedIn more on cases. So it's very important to have a very consistent, very professional look straight away. I found a lot of people don't really care about that. They put any photo or a selfie they took with their partner, or if they have funny ones I found where people just crop themselves out from wedding photos when they were a groomsmen with sunnies, and we can see shoulder of person next to them because they like the image of themselves. They just cropped out and used it as a professional portrait. And obviously everyone who looks at that photo immediately can see that, and just doesn't reflect well on you.
I've seen a lot of photos of people at parties.
Yes.
And they're clearly in a party dress.
Yep.
It's just not appropriate.
Or vacation photos with really bad lighting, this nice background, but the whole face is in shadow. We've got panda eyes or raccoon eyes, as we call them as well. So the light is straight from the top, or big sunnies, or, wind is blowing, or, it just doesn't go with a professional image.
What about the photos? There's a lot of photos on LinkedIn of people with the plain white background. What about those?
Yeah, I call them passport photos. So because they don't say anything about you except for what you look like. Sometimes when the photography is good, they can make you look a little bit better and show a little bit of a personality. But in most cases, that's really not enough. I specialize in portraits that are environmental. So we set up the whole scene. So if you're a baker, we would do it at the bakery, with flour in the air, with the tools in the back, with flowers and everything around. While if you were an accountant, with this different situation, different outfit, different scene, different space, different office. So then, because people are very visual, so, we can try it yourself. And next time you visit a website, you can very quickly see, the first thing you see is the overall graphics design and photography. Then you start reading, and then you start maybe skimming the titles. If you're interested, if everything looks good, then you start reading the actual copy. Copy is very important, but that's the last thing people actually look at. So the photos and the whole feel, the graphic design is very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The same thing goes for, any other thing, be it newspaper, article where the big photograph is, usually very telling about the whole, content.
Yeah.
In many other cases, the photography is the first thing people see. So
absolutely. And the difference between a good photo and a bad photo is huge.
It is.
And that can say so many things about your personal brand as well. Because if you're, say, a service provider or if you're a leader of a team, you want to appear like you're that leader or that you can be trusted. And a bad photo, maybe it's a bad facial expression, or the lighting makes you look like you're a bit dodgy or untrustworthy.
Yep.
It can change people's whole perspective
the whole
of you.
thing, posing, everything. Especially if you can compare your photo to someone else. So imagine you're an employer looking for a new employee, and you get LinkedIn profiles of all your prospective candidates. We few that have really good professional photos, and then we have someone who, as we said, took the photo themselves or asked their mom to take it with the phone against the white wall, and everything's bad about it. And that people pick it up straight away. The same thing when you have, about the team, you've got the website, when you have your whole team photographed. And let's say you even have professional portraits, but then your staff changed. Someone went on maternity, you got someone new, and you thought, okay, let's just put him by the wall and I'll do the photo myself. And then you can see a really big contrast between a proper photograph and the not so proper photograph.
Okay, so we know we shouldn't be getting our mums to take our photos for us. When it comes to picking a photographer, there are a lot of photographers around. How do you pick the right one?
I would recommend someone you have a relationship with, someone you feel comfortable around, because in photography, we take a photograph of a person, but if the person is awkward or not prepared or afraid to say something, or the photographer didn't put them in the right mood, it all shows through. You have this scared feeling or look, or your hands are clenching or your teeth are grinding because you feel so uncomfortable. So it's very important. Photographers are usually people's people. People. Yes. So basically, we're all trained in making our subjects, comfortable. So no matter where you are, it's very, really good idea to first ask someone you really know, but don't ask a friend who owns a camera. Make sure they're a professional photographer. Usually, I recommend someone who is an accredited professional photographer. There's AIPP is a really good resource for people in Australia. They can log on the website and find really good photographers all over the place.
What do you say to people who are thinking, okay, I want a professional photo taken, but isn't it just going to be one photo? How can I justify spending all this money on a professional photographer for one photo? Is there something we can do to maximize that whole experience?
Yes. So every professional photographer should ask you a lot of questions before they even pick up the camera.
Sure.
So I usually always meet my clients in face-to-face. We discuss what they're going to be using the portrait. So it's very important to find a purpose behind the photograph. So we're going to be just one image for LinkedIn, that's fine. If it's going to be whole team shots or creating a whole portfolio for your website, it always comes down to purpose, and every photograph has to have a purpose. So we have to know where it's going to end up on the website. It's going to be one of the hero shots. So it's going to be some buried down in the deeper pages of your website that illustrates a particular service that you offer, for example. So we have to always discuss the purpose behind a photograph. And then the value becomes very evident. So you can use the same photograph for a couple different purposes, or you can have different one for each of them.
Yeah, so you could use the same one across all your profiles, or you could even get some in different styles.
Correct.
If you're maybe speaking at an event or you write a guest post somewhere, they might ask you, send through your headshot, and you might want one that maybe the same background, maybe the same context, but a slightly different expression
That's
or something.
right.
So
Yes.
a photographer could definitely help with that. And that's exactly what we did.
Yeah.
Because I had a long list of things that I wanted.
Yes, and I joined a lot. I enjoyed it a lot.
We actually went to a cafe, and then we went outside for one of those against the wall lifestyle entrepreneurial
shots. Yes.
I was like, wow, I feel like I could be an entrepreneur magazine. Yeah. Maybe one day if they ask me for a photo, I'll send them that one.
Yeah, so you've got it already.
I've got it already. And then we came to Hub and did some office shots because I knew that I needed one for my profile picture, but also for blog posts. And I needed other ones for, like a speaker page and a bunch of different ones.
Yeah, there's a lot of different purposes. For example, when you have a speaking gig, they might ask you to provide a portrait of professional headshot, but they might have some styling guide. So usually they want all the images of all the speakers to be uniform. So they will ask maybe for one against white wall, or they will ask something, on a black background or something like that. So it's good to have different ones prepared, because depending on the style and the theme of the whole speaking event that you're going to, it might be a little bit different if you use it for your business, where you should have some images of you working with your clients to show the whole experience that you offer. Because when your clients vet you online, they want to see what they can expect. And it's really good to show, instead of just portraits of just one person, it's good to show how you would deal with that client. So the spaces you would meet, the feeling you create, how personal, likable are you, how you work, is there more people involved, is any special equipment, any fun things that they might want to see. Yeah, because that all leads up to to creating a little bit more meaningful and more purposeful photography.
Absolutely. And one benefit that I really found to working with you was that I did feel really comfortable in those positions. That sounds a bit weird. Let's get rid of that.
Poses, yeah.
I felt really comfortable in the various locations, and having to pretend to be natural can be quite tricky for some people, especially if you're like, oh, write in this notebook or work on your laptop. But but you were able to make it quite an enjoyable, relaxing experience. So and I believe that's the difference between a good photographer and one who doesn't care so much.
We've got photographers who are technically good. They know how to set up the camera or the lights, but it's all about how the person feels, because that shows up in eventually. You've got, you can work with professional models and so on. They are very easy. You can tell them what do you want and they'll do it in 2 seconds. You were actually very easy to work with. You're very confident, very natural. But I've worked with people who are, come with a lot of different concerns about the way they look. They're very self-conscious, or they feel embarrassed to be in front of a camera, or they think people will be judging them. So it's very important to actually make sure they for those hundredths of a second, they forget there's a camera pointing at them, and that's when I take a photo.
So what are some of your little tricks for helping people, camera shy people, to relax?
I ask them questions they've never heard before.
Okay.
That makes them think about them, because they've never heard about it. Makes them stop for a second, takes all their mind off that. And if it's a meaningful question, they usually end up in a space that they open up just for a little bit, and that's enough for me.
Okay. What sort of question can I ask?
Oh, I've got a whole bunch of them. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what you asked me.
I don't even remember. I like when I work with kids, for example, it's very easy, because you say, like, when you grow up, what's one thing you don't want to be? And they all have a answer ready for what they want to be when they grow up, but they never think about what they don't want to be.
Yeah.
So I've heard the most ridiculous answers, and the reaction of everyone else to their answers is also heartwarming. So I remember one kid said he doesn't want to be a duck when he grows up.
And, I love that.
Yeah, and I said, actually, I would want to be a duck, because you can fly, you can swim. Yeah. So yeah, that's fun. But these are questions designed to disarm people, and make them forget. There's a big camera pointing at them and lights flashing around.
Absolutely. Was there anything else you wanted to? What else do we want to talk about?
All right. Can have a conversation. So maybe let me ask you some questions now.
Okay.
All right. All right. Okay. So Christina.
Yes.
So when you decided to actually update your portraits and your whole portfolio, you thought of me, obviously. Thank you so much. Is there a reason you chose me over all your other photographers that you might know?
Well, I knew that if I didn't pick you, then that would be the end of our friendship.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. I would wish you all the best.
No, I understand. I picked you because I knew that you specialized in portrait photography. Mm-hmm. And for me, my personal brand is so important. I knew that if I was going to invest the money, I'm going to invest it in someone who I know specializes in this sort of thing, and where we can really build a great story around the brand. Because I've seen other people. So I went online and I found what inspired me was I found this one woman's website, and her branding was spot on. It was beautiful. She looked amazing in all her photos. They were so bright and colorful, and they just made her whole website pop. And I was like, I want that. Like I want to reproduce that, but of course in my own style. And so I think for anyone who is looking to do branding photos, go online and find examples of websites that you like, of other people's brands that you like, because otherwise I wouldn't have really had much of an idea of what to communicate to you, of what to say to you, this is what I want. Because I think if you say to a photographer, oh, I want all these branding photos, and they say, oh, well, what do you want? What's the goal? And you don't know, it's not going to be a good result for either of you, because you don't have that end goal that you're working towards.
Yes. Yeah.
So
and actually the images that you liked and you actually send them to me, so I knew what to go for. Actually, they're very, very helpful, because that says the whole thing. Because occasionally it's easy to communicate via words, but when we talk about images that are very visual, it's sometimes easier to just show examples, because this way I can read different things out of them, and you can point to the things that you liked, and that actually makes it much more
especially
easy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and for someone who, if you're not a photographer, it's hard for you to know the right language to put it into as well, because the words that I might use to describe the vibe or the feel or the type of picture I want might be different to what you would use to describe it. So being able to just go, I want it to look like this. And then, so for me it was, okay, I want to be like working in a cafe, being all relaxed and cool. And then I want one of me in my podcast studio being all relaxed and cool again, but podcasting. I was able to send those through. And
do you remember some of the questions I asked you before, when we were just beginning to talk about it?
You asked me about what was what were a few words to describe the feel that I wanted to put across, and also the brand. So this ties back strongly to your own brand that you already have, and you need to think about, what's your branding strategy? Are you serious and businessy and polished and professional, or are you fun and quirky and a bit cheeky, or whatever it is? Are you more sort of soft and gentle and welcoming? What's the vibe that you want to put out? Because that's going to impact where you shoot. It's going to impact the clothes that you wear.
Correct.
And also if you are using any funny props, or if you're being very serious and working at your computer. So tying it back into the branding strategy is really important as well. And for me, it's all very colourful. It's all colourful and bright and quirky, but at the same time, still professional.
But the ones we did, for example, in your podcasting studio, that was a different studio than this, and it's a bit more. It looks like this old school recording studio. So it had,
we went to a recording
dark drapes. It was in this dim room. So the way I set up the lights over is also very important. So I used very focused lighting that made everything very almost like dark magic. So it was all about showing the mystique behind it. Behind what you do, because people just hear your voice, they don't know how much is involved. Now they can see all the cables around us, but it was very important to create a mood for that one, to show that this is a little bit something more special than just you running around with your phone by your mouth, because this is definitely not that.
No, and I didn't want a photo of me podcasting into my wardrobe either, which I also sometimes do. It's not always in a nice studio like this.
Yeah, but nice studio looks better. And obviously, so when we talk about the images and behind the purpose of each image, that would have come out there. And we tried, like with your photography, portraits, we tried all different styles and all different and different locations, because all the photographs had different purpose. So we had some done in a white background studio. So these are the ones you can crop out and move yourself anywhere, impose little bits, do them as titles for your podcast or blog post. A lot of people do that. So we did a lot of different poses that could go with almost anything. So I was asking you, now would be surprise or count to 5, or
we did a few different facial expressions.
So so we usually run with a title. So it could be, I don't know, if you have a blog about, I don't know, flowers, right? So I would say, for example, let's imagine a blog post titled, 2 flowers that you should never give a woman for Valentine's Day, and that should be this stern look, that would make people, that would go well with that title. Or first 5 things, rules to remember about putting together a bouquet, so there will be different expressions that go well with the title. And then when you build a portfolio of those, you can then have a beautiful selection of those that goes well with almost everything.
Yes.
And it's future-proof as well.
Yes, and you can change them up for various things, and you can have them on your sales pages for products or on your LinkedIn photos.
Yeah, email signatures. You can use them on all your social media.
So now what I've got is, how many photos did you take that day?
I won't say how many I took.
He took a lot. Took a lot of photos.
Yes.
And I ended up with, was it about 20, 23?
Something about that.
Yeah. So that many photos that is now part of a bank of photos that I can now draw upon for whatever it is that I need them for. But I know that there's also a ton more that Arek, still has, that if I, down the track, if I want more of just the different poses, different, areas.
Then you'll call me and we'll do it all over again.
Well, I'm actually happy to just use the ones that you already took, because it's, it just, again, it depends on the need, because I see these as being, I probably don't need new photos now for another few years, hopefully, unless I change my hair radically, which is quite a high possibility.
Okay.
But unless that happens, I'm happy to use them for the next few years.
Now, what were if I may ask you another question, what were the things that were going through your mind where you were, for example, choosing your outfits for the day?
Choosing my outfits, I had to pick outfits that, firstly, I felt comfortable in, because if you feel uncomfortable, then you just, there's no way.
Yep.
I picked outfits that, and also when you feel comfortable in them, you feel confident as well. And that was something that I was wanting to portray in my photos. Like, hey, I'm confident, I can coach you, I'm a speaker, you should hire me, buy stuff off me. So so I had to pick the clothes that I felt really good and confident in as well. And flattering clothes too.
Yeah,
there are some clothes that just flatter more than others. And, unless you want to pay your photographer heaps more to like just Photoshop your belly out. I also had to consider the colours. So colours was a big thing because, like I said before, I wanted to portray this professional but also fun and a little bit quirky, like bright feel or vibe in the photos. So I made sure that I picked bright colours that I know would also go with the website.
And also very important for me is how you felt during the day. What do you think I did well that made you so comfortable? And did you trust me? Did you feel confident in my abilities? Did I lead the whole day properly, or did I run like a headless chicken trying to figure out what's next?
I already knew that you're a great photographer because I've seen your work. So this is something you can do if you're picking a photographer. Have a look at their work and see if you like what they've done. So I already knew that you were great at what you do. Otherwise, I wouldn't have asked you to help me out. And one thing I like about you is that you're really organized. So you're like, okay, we're going to meet at this time. I'm going to come here. I'm going to meet you there. And then you had it all set up beforehand, and you asked me to send through like those ideas for what I wanted for photos so that you knew exactly what it was. We had a couple of discussions beforehand. So
we prepared a short list. So
we
had
prepared a
list of shots
and we had a schedule set out for the day where we said, okay, we're going to start at the cafe, then we're going to go to the studio, then we're going to go to the office, then we're going to then we'll go lunch, and then we'll do this after lunch. And for me, that shows me that you're really organized, you're on the ball, you're the one who's running the day, because the way I saw it, I was like, I'm just there to rock up, pretend to play on my laptop, and you just take my photo, and that's it. Like, it should be easy, right? It should be easy for me. Although it was quite a big day because we were running around to all sorts of different locations. But, you kept your calm, and you're very good at making people feel comfortable. And even so, you were photographing Aaron, my partner, because like for our new business photos as well. And Aaron hates having his photo taken, and hated having his photo taken. We've tried to do just the plain against the white wall Aaron like headshot, and we could not get him to do a half decent face. He could only pull really silly faces, or no face at all. But you were able to really draw his personality out and create a really interesting, have a great photo come from it. And he felt comfortable as well, as comfortable as I could imagine he would feel with a camera in his face.
So after the day when we said goodbyes, and I was heading to my office and studio to work on the images before you came to see me again to view them and select them, what are the things that were going through your head before you saw the photos? After the day, were you confident? Did you have, did we forget something? Or
no? I was pretty confident.
Awesome.
I was pretty confident with it all because you seemed confident. At the end, you were like, "Nah, like that's done. We've got it," which is great. I noticed, I should probably mention, like during the day, because there was a moment when we were in this media room here when we were taking the photos against the white wall, and I remember I had to say to you, no, this is what it needs to be all white.
Yeah.
Because even at that point, like you had an idea of, we're going to have a nice grey blend. And I was
modern,
like, no, but I need it to be all white so I can use it for this stuff. So during the day, I think it's so important as the subject to keep in mind what these photos are being used for, and if it's not quite right or it's not working the way that you think, you have to speak up because that's your opportunity to get it right in that instance.
But you still used a couple of those modern gray gradient, yes. But then I had an extra light. We had a white wall, so that's what you were after. Now on the actual day of the viewing, so I usually invite my clients over to my gallery so we can view them all together on the big screen where I can make my notes and we can do it properly. Do you remember any of the things that I told you when you were looking at the photos? What to look at or what not to look at?
So firstly, I need to mention that, and we've done a whole podcast on this actually, Arek's whole customer experience is unbelievable. His house is all painted black and it's all within his branding. And the viewing room is also beautiful and all set out nicely. And you sit on this beautiful black couch and he brings sofa, and he's got his hand carved throne that he sits on.
Yes.
And he brings out cake and beautiful tea and a beautiful teapot, and then you sit there and you view the photos. And what I thought was really interesting that I wasn't expecting was that you picked out about 70 to 100 photos out of the hundreds and hundreds that you'd taken. So you'd already gone and curated.
Oh, yes.
You'd already culled down that bunch of photos. But the way you presented them to us was not in order of the day. You actually split them all up and presented them in a random fashion so that we were able to look at each one fresh instead of going, that one's a little bit different to the last one. Can we flick between the two? Yeah, because if you compare very similar photographs from a studio session, then they might look like it's a frame by frame, and it just you look at the difference between them, not at actually the photographs. So mixing them up with other ones make you assess them on their own merits. And one thing you did say to me was, don't look at yourself and go, oh, my smile's not great, or oh, my hair's funny, and don't look at yourself and start judging yourself immediately, because that's not the point of these photos. No. The purpose is for your LinkedIn profile. The purpose is for your website. Yep. And you told me to look at the photo as a whole and judge it based on, is this doing the job? Because there were some photos in there that we both loved. Aaron and I were like, oh, those photos are amazing, but we don't know where we'd use them. They were great photos, but we didn't have a purpose for them. So we had to leave them behind. And maybe in the future we can use them, but for what we needed at that moment. So that's why I usually explain that it's very important to look at a photograph from your clients or from the viewer's perspective. And if these are corporate or business or LinkedIn portraits, profiles, these are not for you. These are of you, but they are for people who want to see that, who want to see your profile, who want to read your bio, for example. So they will look at the image completely differently. They won't judge your uneven ears or something like that. Because everyone's got a thing that they really, really hate about themselves. I hate my chin. I don't like my side view. So you have to forget all about that. You have to put yourself in your employers or potential employers or someone who views your bio, for example, because they will look at it differently. They will look at it. They will glance at it and they will immediately, within a second, get a feel for you. And then as they read the bio, it should nicely tie into what they see on the photograph as well. It's also very important to remember that the person you see a few times a day, when you see yourself, usually it's in the mirror.
And that's not actually the person everyone else sees. So people keep forgetting that because they see themselves, every day, several times a day, some people more than that. But they see a mirror image of themselves. Everyone else sees your actual image. So it's like, two hands when you clap. They in the mirror, they look like it's a mirror image of those hands, but actually they're two different hands. So when they're confronted with an image that everyone else sees, like the camera, like a photograph, this is a little bit different than what they see. And there were very fun experiments done over that from a psychological point of view when they showed subjects a mixture of their portraits, and some of them were flipped, mirror imaged, and they on average like the mirror imaged versions of their portraits more. But when they show the same ones to their friends and family, because they know them in real life, they like the normal ones. They hated the mirror imaged ones because most people are not symmetrical, not ideally symmetrical. So those differences in the mirror image shows up. So it's very important, for example, for us, for photographers, to never flip, mirror image, especially of an adult. With kids, you can get away with that, but not with adults.
Is that why some people say, "Oh, I hate seeing photos of myself"?
That's right. Just like hearing your own voice, because
it's different to how you hear it normally.
Yes, because when you hear it normally, your voice is nice and deep and melodic, and vibrates through your chest, and because you hear the vibrations as well. When you hear it recorded, you immediately cringe because that's not what I sound like. And I get that reaction. Oh, I hate it. But I understand that microphone doesn't pick up all the vibrations that you hear through your body. And and neither do people when you speak to them. So when you hear yourself record, it's just like seeing your photo taken.
Yeah, I never thought about that before. I'm actually interviewing a vocal coach this afternoon.
Oh, okay.
We're going to be talking about how can you improve your vocal tone so that it comes across.
Slowing down. Yes. I found, for example, when I speak on the phone, I go very, very quick and my pitch goes up. But when I use my Bluetooth headset, when I hear the feedback in my ear, just like now with the headphones here, that allows me to slow down and bring the voice down as well. So I'm much more happy with this. Yeah.
That's great. We did do an interview. Oh, how long ago was it now? When we had our first conversation on the podcast.
A
couple of years ago, probably 18 months ago, and we didn't have both have headphones on, so we weren't able to hear ourselves. And I remember afterwards you said to me, "I didn't realize my voice is so squeaky." And I'm like, "It's not squeaky."
No, because you don't hear what I hear.
No.
In my head, my voice is very slow and deep and vibrant. It's not like that in real life, and I know that. It's being awkward having that being confronted with that.
Yeah, but it's a good comfort challenge.
Yes.
To do that.
Yes.
So what's next for you in terms of business photos? Do you work with a particular type of client for business photos? Portraits, I should say.
Not really. I like people who know what they're after, and I actually like people who don't know what they're after because I can then help them with that. I get a lot of clients who are in the final stages of updating the websites, and they've got websites with stock photos put in. They actually, most of them want to leave them in and just update the team photos, for example. But after speaking to me, they realize very quickly it's actually way more important to have their own photographs sprinkled throughout the whole website. So then we work backwards. So we think about the banner of our services website. Then we think about what would be great there, and for each paragraph we come up with a different one as well. So these are really great. But I'm doing some LinkedIn profiles as well. I'm doing what else did I do? Yeah, lots of websites. And actually, it's very fun to then get the link and see them already in the website and see how it all ties in with the design and the content. It's very, very rewarding.
Have you ever had clients that put the images in the website and you go, "No, that's not what it was meant for," or they've put it in wrong?
No, but I had a client who put a stock photo among all my photos, and just the stock photo sticks out so much. People can immediately say that's not actual photo of you. And that doesn't build trust. The website will look professional, but the moment they realize this is not actual photo of you, they're like, okay, why doesn't have a proper one?
I had that suggested to me for the podcast services business, our new business, that we could get a photo of a bunch of people that weren't in our team to make it look like we had more people in our team. And I was like, but that's not us. It doesn't make sense. I'd rather have just photos of us and then say we do have a team, because we do, but we're not at the stage where we're going to have photos of every single person because they're always changing. We need to have, just us two for the moment.
Yes. And then when you get extra people, you know who to call.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that must work well with you in terms of getting repeat work, because if people have photos done in a certain way and then they have people leave the team and then new people come in, or there's something happens and they want to rebrand, they get you back in again.
And it's funny because when we spoke last time, remember I was introducing 5 castles, and I've got 5 castles represent different types of portraits that I do. So I do a lot of family portraits, which is my sandcastle page, do pet portraits, couples, and so on. And I had the 5th castle. Back then, I didn't know what it was. Or did I? No, I was just announcing.
You would just announce it.
Because that's when I came up with it. So when I started my business 2011, I had no idea what that 5th castle would be. So I kept it under wraps, literally. And it emerged completely organically. So I was very happy that I had that one left behind, because when I came up with what it could be, which now is business castle portraits, I already had portfolio for it, because people asked me to do some of the business portraits, and I use the approaches that I use with my domestic clients, but with the addition of creating them for a particular purpose.
And that's a perfect example of building out your services based on demand and keeping up with progress and how things are evolving and changing and new services that are required. But that's a whole other discussion.
Yes. We'll do that in 18 months.
We will. Arek, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Much.
It's been a pleasure having you.
See ya.
Yay.